Viewer discretion is advised.
Boom, perfect timing.
What is the rules of trespassing as a law enforcement officer?
To be in a place where you're prohibited from being or you no longer have permission.
And can you ID somebody if they are trespassing?
Well, if you told them your presence here is no longer allowed, you must leave, and they refuse to leave, then that's trespass after warning.
Okay, so perfect. So trespass after warning, you have to give them the option to leave. And then if they do not leave, then you can arrest them, correct?
That's correct.
At what point was I trespassing?
Objective form.
Mr. Taylor, if you had just showed us some identification, this all could have been avoided. But you refused to show identification, saying that since your activity was lawful, which it was, technically, sort of, your intention was at least. If you just showed some identification, then that wouldn't, we didn't arrest you for trespassing. We arrested you for resisting an officer without violence.
And open carry.
Yes. Because
Do you know what happened? Do you know what happened to those charges?
they were dropped.
According to the lawsuit, fisherman and open carry activist Michael Taylor was walking south on the Harbour Bridge overpass towards his fishing destination located at the inlet near the bridge underpass. Mr. Taylor was observably wearing fishing attire, a fishing backpack containing a tackle box and other fishing gear, and holding a fishing pole in his left hand. Mr. Taylor was holding a camera in his right hand. He was also openly carrying two firearms, a AR-15 rifle slung across his chest, barrel facing the ground, and a Glock 23 handgun holstered on his hip. Officer Kunkus would approach Mr. Taylor on foot and would reach for Mr. Taylor's firearm. Mr. Taylor would vocally object and would explain to Officer Kunkus that he is lawfully open carrying while engaged in fishing, hunting, and camping. After a brief back and forth, Officer Kunkus would handcuff Mr. Taylor's hands behind his back and arrest him.
Woke up, I was going to go down fishing in Miami, and I was going to the Harbour Canal, Harbour Inlet, and there's two sides. There's the north side, which is, I believe, ran by Miami, and the south side of that bridge is ran by Bell Harbor. So I went out to try to fish the jetty initially, and when I got there, there was a no fishing sign at the inlet. All the way to the tip of the inlet, there's a no fishing sign. I'm like, okay, whatever. I proceeded to move just like I always do. As soon as I get into a body of water, I get a line in the water, toss the line in the water, ended up going back to the car to pick something up. I can't remember if it was a drink or something. I forgot something in the car. And so on my way back to the car, I ended up, putting my stuff back in my bag and proceeded to go up and over the Harbour to the Bell Harbor side. And before I even got there, I see him coming, and I'm like, all right, here we go. And I have stuff in my hands. I've got a flag, fishing pole, and a GoPro in my hand. So my hands are pretty full, and they approach, and Officer Kunkus comes right out of the car, and it's like, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, hey, I'm about to go fishing. And he just reaches out and tries to grab my gun. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I say my Fourth Amendment. And that was one of the scariest things when he was just like, yeah, whatever. And I'm just like, this is not going to go well.
Oh, what?
For real?
Yeah.
You can't go carrying that around.
I was going fishing, man.
With this?
Whoa.
Is it loaded?
Hey, hold on.
Is it
I
loaded?
do not.
Huh?
My Fourth Amendment right.
Yeah.
My Fourth Amendment right.
Yeah.
At this point, Officer Kunkus restricted Mr. Taylor's freedom of movement by exercising a physical show of force on Mr. Taylor and his firearm, thereby detaining Mr. Taylor or denying him the right to liberty without affording him due process.
Hold on. I don't consent to any of this, man. I'm going fishing. Look up 790.25, section 3, subsection H. It's not about who I voted for, man. While I'm engaged in fishing, hunting, and camping, I'm allowed to do this. Look up.
Don't you think you're going to get people really excited about?
I'm not worried about what.
weapons around.
Hey, look, this is my constitutional right. You swore an oath to uphold this right.
Okay,
Hey,
never in my life
look, guys.
stay over here.
I'm
Stay
not.
over here.
Look, you're not wearing a mask, dude. I'm trying to.
Neither
no,
were you. Neither
well,
were you.
You guys
We're
approached
walking
me.
and talking, so I don't have it on.
All right, hold on.
Okay, it's an
Hold on.
emergency.
No, it's not an emergency.
Yes, it is.
I'm not doing nothing to nobody. While you're engaged in fishing, hunting, and camping,
Okay, let's go
It
talk
is-
about fishing first. There's no fishing on the jetty. And
Seven-
There's no fishing under the bridge.
dude, you can't fish over here? On either one of these sides. There's people fishing right now.
No, there's no one fishing right now.
Oh, yeah, they are.
No, they aren't.
I just saw
I was
them.
just
I
there.
came over to this
Maybe
bridge.
on the other side, but not on the other side.
Well, then I'm going to walk away. No,
Why not?
because I'm not doing anything unlawful.
Well, how am I going to know that you have the right to carry these weapons if you don't have your identification?
901,
You could be,
151.
I don't know what that is.
Hey.
Wait a second. We're talking a second.
No, I don't want to talk to
You're
you.
causing complaints.
Hold on,
I have to
hold on.
answer the complaints, and
Hold
you're
on.
causing complaints. You're scaring
Am I being detained?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
You don't have to answer any questions, but you do have to identify yourself.
No, I do not.
Yes, you do.
Under
Yes,
what
you
law?
do.
901, 151.
Public order.
No.
Yes.
You're,
Yes.
no, you're both wrong. Yes.
I can't believe you.
I need to get your state attorney on the
Okay,
phone.
my name's right here.
State
Okay.
attorney.
All right. There, go ahead.
Oh, I don't care about your sergeant. Get your state attorney. State attorney. Right now, I am telling you what I am doing is lawful.
And so, they surround me and I'm sitting there trying to explain, hey, I'm trying to go fishing. I'm like, I saw people fishing. That's the only reason I'm coming over here to go fishing. And the one thing about all of it is that I wasn't even there. So if they're like, hey, there's no fishing, I'm like, yeah, I'll turn around and go away. And I tried to do that, but they were like, no, you're under arrest.
What were the charges?
They charged me with open carry, which is 790.053 of the Florida statutes, and resisting without violence, which is always, it's something that they seem to like to do to anybody that has a disagreement with them. If they're not, it's not that I wouldn't comply with them. I was just telling them that I was doing something lawful. And because I was telling them all that, they didn't like it. So when they arrested me, they hit me with that secondary charge.
The trumped up charges against Michael Taylor would eventually be dropped, and about a year later, Mr. Taylor would file a lawsuit against Officer Kunkus, citing Second Amendment infringement and several Fourth Amendment violations, such as malicious prosecution, unlawful arrest, unlawful detention, unlawful search, and unlawful seizure. What's unique about Mr. Taylor's lawsuit is that he's a pro se plaintiff, meaning he's not represented by an attorney. Mr. Taylor is representing himself. During a lawsuit, there is something called a deposition, which involves a living, breathing witness being asked questions about the case. The deposition has two purposes: to find out what the witness knows and to preserve that witness's testimony. The intent is to allow the parties to learn all of the facts before the trial, so that no one is surprised once that witness is on the stand. Depositions don't take place in courtrooms. Instead, they usually take place in attorneys' offices. The attorneys will ask the witness a series of questions about facts and events related to the lawsuit, with the entire deposition recorded word for word by a court reporter. What you're about to see is Michael Taylor questioning Officer Andrew Kunkus during his deposition. How many people get the opportunity to question the person who unlawfully arrested them and violated their rights?
All right. Officer Kunkus, how long have you been an officer of Bell Harbor?
Since May of 2011,
Have you worked at any other police department in the state of Florida?
Miami Beach Police Department.
And for how long?
May of 1994 until October 2010.
Have you ever been involved with a lawsuit?
Yes.
When?
In the 1990s.
Do you know what 901.151 of the Florida statutes is?
Yeah, in regards to stopping people and frisking them, detaining them.
Correct. Do you happen to know what 790.25 is?
It has to do with being armed while going on a hunting or fishing expedition.
We'll get to the letters here in a minute, the lettering, but primarily the beginning parts of 790.25. Do you know what that part of the statute? You don't have to give me the verbatim what it says, but just a general consensus what 790.25 says in the Florida statutes.
That it's okay to have a rifle if you're going hunting or fishing.
I'll give you a little insight. 790.25, the beginning parts, just without the letters or the numbers, pertains to possession of a firearm.
All right.
Now we're going to go to section 3. Do you know what section 3 of 790.25 says?
No, not exactly.
Section 3 states, and I'm not quoting this, I just want to give you a general idea, but the beginning part says the provisions of Florida statute 790.053 and 790.06 do not apply in the following instances. Do you know what 790.053 is?
No.
Do you know what 790.06 is?
No.
Okay, just so I can give you a little clarity about it, the 790.053 statute pertains to open carry. 790.06 pertains to concealed carry. Is 790.053 in Florida under the Florida statute, is that illegal in Florida?
I was wondering, can a felon carry a firearm while going fishing or hunting?
That wasn't my question.
All right. I was just wondering.
That wasn't my question.
All right. So you have the book in front of you. Go ahead.
Right now I'm asking you questions and I'm just looking to see if you know the answers.
No.
You don't know if open carry is lawful or illegal in the state of Florida?
It's generally not lawful.
Okay. Do you know what the 379 statutes are?
No.
Do you know what 379.105 is?
Nope.
What if I told you that 379.105 is, in a general consensus of this statute, is harassment of fishers or hunters?
Okay. I'll take your word for it.
Under that law, there are penalties for harassment of fishers or hunters. Do you know what those penalties are?
No, what are the penalties?
The penalties are a second-degree misdemeanor. Have you ever arrested somebody for a second-degree misdemeanor?
Yes.
Under 379.354 of the Florida statutes, do you know what that is?
No.
379.354, in a general nutshell, it pertains to possession of a fishing license and the authorities that I would have to give said license to. Do you know who would check a fishing license?
Generally, the Fish and Wildlife Commission does that.
And do you know what the FWC in Florida actually stands for?
Florida Wildlife Commission.
It's a Florida and Fish and Wildlife police officer, basically. And they're state oriented, just like state troopers. These are state oriented law enforcement officers.
A completely different agency that just focuses on wildlife.
Right. That's primarily, it's fishing, hunting, game, anything that's wildlife here in the state of Florida, whether it be boars, fish, whatever, it's all covered under them. Under 379 statutes, it primarily deals, or actually it only deals with Florida Wildlife and Commission officers specifically.
I have asked many people for their fishing license.
You have?
Yes, I have.
What authority did you have?
I do it out on the jetty when people are fishing. And I am allowed to ask for it.
Why do you think you have the right to ask for it?
It's a Florida statute. I'm empowered to enforce Florida statutes.
So essentially, Officer Kunkus is checking people's fishing license, even though he has zero authority to do so. And even if he did find a violation, he would have to ask a different agency to enforce it.
Police can't even run my fishing license. Most of these things are not criminal citations. Do you know fishing regulations in the state of Florida?
A few of them.
What are those regulations you know?
Size of snooks, lobster season.
Okay. What are the regulations for snook?
The snook has to be between 14 and 29 inches or some approximate size like that. I'd have to refer to the book.
If I was to tell you it was 28 inch, or on the east coast of Florida, it's 28 to 32 inches, and on the west coast, it's 28 to 33 inches. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I would say that sounds reasonable.
Well, that's actually 100% true.
All right. Well, I've never fined anybody for any violation for it.
And just like I questioned him about, oh, well, what's the size limit on snook? Because he said he's checked people for snook, and he's like 14 to 29. And I'm like, that's not even close, not even remotely close. He got two inches, right? But if he caught somebody with a 30-inch fish, and his 14 to 29 would get actually that person arrested for a felony because it's a federally protected fish. And that's why I was like, you're really pushing the limit on friggin' trying to arrest somebody. He's like, well, I don't really fine them, but you check them. And that's the problem, is that you don't have that authority. But my curiosity with this is, if you don't know, like as you just said, you don't know the law, how can you enforce something that you don't know?
Check the form. You can answer.
By a careful review of the statute before taking any action.
In the deposition, I asked him, if you don't know the law, how can you enforce the law? And he's like, well, before we take action, we do a very in-depth, they look at all the statutes and da-da-da-da-da. Well, let's just say, for hypothetically, he would have looked at the open carry statute, or would have looked at what I was doing, the statute I quoted. If he would have looked at that, he would have found out it was lawful. If they were claiming the COVID sign. Well, if they would have looked into the governor's order, they would have found out that was wrong. So there's a few things that it's like, okay, you look into stuff before you take action. Well, you took action, and then here we are. Do you know what the Fourth Amendment is?
Yes.
What is it?
Due process.
If I was to tell you that is not correct, and I was to tell you it's unreasonable searches and seizures, allowing myself to be in possession of my personal property, effects, things of that nature. If I told you that, would you believe me?
All right.
Is that a yes or is that a no?
That's an I don't know.
I'm looking at the camera, looking at him, looking at his lawyer, and he's just sitting in his car, just like, man, I don't want to be here. And that's why I think this video, people can see it on paper all day, but to see his demeanor is just like the disdain. And it's probably not just me. I'm sure he's done this to numerous other people. You know, it wasn't day one for him. You are not an FWC officer, correct?
No, I'm not.
When you became a police officer, did you swear or affirm that you would uphold and defend the Constitution, the Florida Constitution, and the laws thereof?
Yes.
Do you have your phone with you, or are you on your phone?
No, I'm on a laptop from work.
Okay.
I have my phone with me, yes.
Can you go to Merriam-Webster for me real quick?
No.
Can you please pull out your phone and go to Merriam-Webster for me, please?
He doesn't have to look anything up. He's just here to answer questions today. So, man, I have no objection. I'll put it up on the screen. I mean, there.
Oh yeah, please.
Journey or excursion undertaken for a specific purpose, group of persons making such a journey.
Okay. We're gonna slow this down a little bit, and we're gonna take this just like 790.25 section 3, and then we have multiple subsections in that, correct? We have multiple, it's A through a bunch like J or K or way down there. But there's multiple sections of certain definitions of law. Just like in this definition of law or definition, we're going to start at the beginning. The definition of an expedition is a journey or excursion undertaken for a specific purpose. That is the first part. The second part is saying the group of persons making such a journey. The second definition is efficient promptness, i.e. speed. The third definition, a sending or setting forth. Would you agree as a reasonable person, definition 1, section A, was I on a journey or excursion undertaken for a specific purpose?
So your purpose was eventually to file lawsuits for monetary gain? Is that was the purpose?
That wasn't my question. My question was, as a reasonable person, would definition 1, section A journey or excursion undertaken for a specific purpose, would that be a reasonable definition of what I was doing?
Well, there's your ostensible purpose, then there's your actual purpose.
Well, what was my actual purpose?
Lawsuit.
Do you know how many lawsuits I have?
40.
If I told you I have other than a dismissed lawsuit that I was part of that got dismissed.
I haven't researched you. No, I don't. I have no idea.
Well, you're saying I have 40 and I've got lots of videos. So, okay. So 40, that's what you're saying.
I'm just throwing out a number.
Well, let's keep it realistic. Like if you really think that, that's what I would actually ask is throw out a realistic number. I want to know what you think about this.
All right. What's your next question, sir?
Okay. Can you pull up the definition of emergency? All right. The definition is an unforeseen combination of circumstances or the resulting state that calls for immediate action. What was the combination of circumstances that resulted in you had to make immediate action?
You refused to identify yourself while openly carrying firearms.
Before you approached me, what was so necessary that you had to make immediate action?
I was responding to a police complaint.
And what was that complaint?
That there was a man carrying a shotgun.
Really don't know why he referred to it as a shotgun, but those are the little things that you have to pay attention to because those are going to be the slip-ups that matter. And is it lawful to possess a firearm in the state of Florida?
Yes.
Was I carrying my firearm lawfully in the state of Florida?
Yes. Although you refused to assist me in determining that with surety.
Okay. Once again, I come back to the Fourth Amendment in 901-151. Do you believe I have civil rights?
Yes, you have civil rights.
Do you believe you violated my civil rights?
No, I don't agree.
Scott, I'm not sure if you have like little neck movement or something. Please try not to move your head. Please let your client answer.
I'm working on multiple screens here, so my head's gonna be moving all the time.
I'm trying to pay attention to him, but I'm also trying to pay attention to you. And when I asked that question, I kind of saw something that I didn't really like. But I'll move forward from that. I'm not going to keep beating a dead horse. Can you check anybody carrying a lawful firearm?
You're the only person I've ever seen openly carrying a firearm until you brought your little group later for your further demonstration. I'd never seen anyone openly carrying a firearm in Miami Beach or in Bal Harbour.
That wasn't my question. My question is, can you check anyone carrying a lawful firearm?
Carrying it how?
While they have a concealed weapon, can you check them for said license if they've broken no law?
That is that is a difficult question to answer because the circumstances change.
Okay, I'll give you a scenario. You pull somebody over for speeding. You ask them, do you have a firearm in the car? They say yes. Do you have the right to check their firearms license?
It depends on where the firearm is.
In their glove compartment.
That would be lawfully carried, so no.
If they were concealed carrying it.
I might check their concealed weapons permit for validity and the firearm for whether it's stolen or not.
Whether it's stolen or not?
Yeah, that's
Or
what
just
officers
because-
do. I hear it on the radio constantly.
Okay, but you're not just checking their concealed weapons permit. You're checking to see if their firearms are stolen.
You check the serial number to make sure that it's not wanted or lost or stolen. It's something that is commonly done. I hear it on the radio all the time.
Is that a policy within Bell Harbor?
It is not a policy in Bell Harbor. It's something I hear being done in the county, the Sunny Isles. Just one moment, sir. I'm sorry. Jeff, I can't talk right now. I'm sorry. All right, go ahead, Mr. Taylor.
We have a Second Amendment right here. And unless you're doing something unlawful or they have knowledge of you doing something unlawful or any of that, they can't just stop and check to see anything. They can't do it. And even if you're pulled over in a traffic stop, and that's why I pulled up this scenario of a traffic stop, is that you're pulling him over for X, but now you're trying to find out if he's a felon with a gun. And you can't do that. If you were here because of a firearm and he had done something unlawful, that's a whole nother ballgame when there's unlawfulness. But you can't just check some random person. And once again, they probably did the same thing, but I had been arrested. So they were going to run a check on it. And that's just the way the law works. But to run somebody and at any willy-nilly, they can't do it. It's not lawful. It violates your Second Amendment right and it violates your Fourth. Did you admit to what I was doing that day? What I was doing was lawful?
No, wasn't lawful.
Did you admit in the video of that day that what I was doing was lawful?
There was such a law that you were quoting, but it didn't apply. We asked you repeatedly to show some identification. You said that we had no right to ask you for it since you were engaged in fishing. I mean, how did I know that you weren't the next Adam Lanza or Salvador Rojas?
Did anybody get shot before I showed up?
No, but no one got shot before Adam Lanza went to the elementary school. No one got shot before Mr. Salvador went to the elementary school.
So from the time I was there until the time I met you, I could have done anything I wanted. I could have hurt people, but I didn't. I was walking with a patriotic flag, a fishing pole, and a GoPro, correct?
That's right.
What part of that for you caused alarm for the citizens?
The AR-15.
A minute ago, you called it a shotgun, so I just want to make sure we're talking about the same firearm.
Yes. You never had a shotgun. You had an AR-15.
Perfect. What is the rules of trespassing as a law enforcement officer?
To be in a place where you're prohibited from being or you no longer have permission.
And can you ID somebody if they are trespassing?
Well, if you told them your presence here is no longer allowed, you must leave, and they refuse to leave, then that's trespass after warning.
Okay, so perfect. So trespass after warning, you have to give them the option to leave, and then if they do not leave, then you can arrest them, correct?
That's correct.
At what point was I trespassing?
Check the form.
Mr. Taylor, if you had just showed us some identification, this all could have been avoided. But you refused to show identification, saying that since your activity was lawful, which it was, technically, sort of, your intention was at least. If you just showed some identification, then that wouldn't. We didn't arrest you for trespassing. We arrested you for resisting an officer without violence.
And open carry.
Yes.
Do
Because
you know what happened? Do you know what happened to those charges?
they were dropped.
unless I'm breaking the law, I have a right. Those questions that he's answering are a very direct reflect of why I'm suing. I want him to realize what he did was wrong, because I can't get him arrested like he arrested me, and he actually violated my rights, kidnapping, so on and so forth. So there's only one way to hold him accountable, and that's either in the public eye, YouTube, or we go through this route. And yes, I will. If I win, I will make money. I just don't know how much. If they could come out with a settlement saying, hey, X amount of dollars, and I might or might not take it. Or if it goes to court and they decide on X amount of dollars, that's what the court would decide, and I don't say it's about a number. I want the accountability, but yes, there is a number that I would like to see, but hey, whatever happens, happens, I'm doing a lawsuit by myself, and I've put $400 or $500 into this. And I think it's worth it. I think the accountability at this point right now, even I feel I've won in this point because I've gotten to this point. Most people don't get to this point, not without a lawyer anyway.